everybody. Welcome to the Philly Sports Convo. I'm Jason Lee. This is episode number 16, and before we get to our guest, and this guy, in my opinion, is one of the hardest working guys doing it today, one of the hardest working guys I know anyway. Before we get to him, a reminder that there's a really cool way you can support the podcast. If you choose to do that, we'd appreciate it. On our website, a great shop with really cool merchandise, Philly Sports Convo merchandise with our logo on there. Just go to shop.phillysportsconvo.com. Shirts, sweatshirts, t-shirts, sweatpants, all sorts of other accessories like mouse pads and desk pads and coffee mugs, tumblers, magnets, the whole nine yards. Shop.phillysportsconvo.com. That is the website. Also, if you would, those of you in the Warminster, Bucks County area or near the area, every Tuesday you can join me for trivia at the Blue Bar, the really cool spot on York Road in Warminster. Great food. You can have a drink or two and have some fun, win some cool prizes every Tuesday from 7 till 9. You can join me there. And I know my guest for this podcast has told me he's going to be there, which I appreciate. With that, let me bring on the great Tony Cutillo. Gosh, I would list everything that you're doing, Tony, but I don't know if I have that kind of time. Let me think about this. You've got Heat Ratio Sports. You've got the Win Daily Sports Show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. You've got your own PR firm, Rise and React Media. You got a podcast with the Delaware Bluecoats. You've got a really an awesome podcast, which really is tackling an amazing topic called Fighting for Overtime, talking about youth sports. So we'll get into that. But did I miss anything?
Not yet. I mean, you never know what's going to come about, but so far we're good.
Well, and this is one of the things that I really admire about you. You've got your hand in so many different things, and I think you and I are the same in that, I never say no to work. I never say no to anything new, and I feel like you're the same way, right?
Absolutely. I got taught a long time ago, just when I started PR, a lot of people would tell me, you could say yes or you could say no to different interviews depending on the wattage of the station and the outreach. I said, no, I say no to anything because to me, it's another eye, it's another voice. Yep. I don't care if it's two people, somebody's going to listen. So I don't turn down anything.
No, you're absolutely right. And I love that. And I want to talk about everything you're doing, but you are a sports analyst, and not only that, you have a great-looking basement, which I know I comment on every time we talk on some kind of broadcast, whether it's TV or podcast. And I remember you told me the last time I did trivia, you came out to that. You said that's your wife's doing, right?
Hey, you met her. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I bought the stuff, and this was her. I said, listen, this is what I want. And she's like, I'll do it. I said, all right, I'm going to stay back and let you do your thing. So luckily, thank God for her, she gets this done. And I just get to show it off, man. I got the easy job.
That's awesome. And we've got a lot of sports I want to talk about. But real quick, a similar thing here. When we bought the house, I told my wife, I told Natalie, you know what? You could have the entire house. Let me have the basement. That being said, there, amongst all my sports and entertainment stuff in this basement, there's a picture of Barry Manilow hanging up here somewhere, and that is not my doing.
You sure you're not a Barry guy?
What's funny? I don't know if it's the fact that I'm getting older, but when I stumble across a Barry Manilow song on the radio, I actually don't turn it off.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened to me, but I don't turn it off anymore. It's like, it's a miracle, a true blue spectacle. That's not a bad song.
Nah, man. Listen, we all have our thing. Listen, when Kenny Rogers jumps on, I don't turn them off either. So I listen to everything, man. So I get it.
Yeah. All right. So a lot of sports I want to get to, and first and foremost, we got to talk some Phillies baseball. I think you and I are kind of contemporaries. I probably have a few years on you, I think, but we're close to the same age. Is this in your lifetime, or at least as long as you can remember being a Phillies fan, is this the best team you've ever seen?
Oh, without a doubt. 100%. I mean, I think we all would say, I guess I'm 46. So in 93, it was kind of, I was a teenager, right? So I was a lot younger. I just graduated from 8th grade. So I was being a freshman in high school. So that was great, right? To see all those misfits. And then in 2007, 8, 9, when we were finally got to the playoffs, 08, win the World Series. That was like, wow, this is a great and fun team. But looking at this team, it's just so complete. And there's so many lovable talents and players on this team and personalities that
Yeah.
are just very personable. Not to say that '08 wasn't that way, but this team more than anything is one with the fans. And I think that's why, and it goes by their manager, man. Topper is that kind of guy, just like Charlie was too, right? So same kind of deal. And that's why I think this is the best team we've ever seen.
And by the way, I realized after you said all that I have a little more than a few years than you. I'm 51. So I do remember.
It's only five. It's only five.
I do remember '93, and it's funny you mentioned '93 because I read early this morning as we're taping this on Thursday afternoon. I read early this morning that the Phillies, as we tape this, are 44-19, and they're in London right now, getting set to play this weekend. 44-19. After 63 games in 1993, the team was 45-18. They were actually one game better, but, and I know you were a little younger than me, but I certainly remember this. Number one, nobody expected it. I mean, they weren't nearly as complete of a team. You had a bunch of guys just kind of, use the old cliche, catching lightning in a bottle. But this team, you really get the feeling that they could sustain, if not this level, at least close to this level of success, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's funny. You had one, I think if I recall, in '93, one young guy that actually came up, which was Kevin Stocker at that time, came up in that Houston Astros series and then, took over that position. But this year, for this team, this Philly, you have, listen, we call it the daycare, right? We have all the young guys, right? It really is amazing. Yeah. And Jason, you'll remember this as well. Back in the Ruben Amaro days, he went all in. And I always say this, listen, I do not fault Ruben. I was all for it. Go 4 aces, get everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Go, right? I don't fault him. But the one thing that we did, we gave away all that talent in the farm system, and we didn't rebuild our farm system.
Right.
And now we're starting to do that. And credit to Don Browski for not trading those guys away. And that's why we've been able to sustain the success. And that's why we'll be better than '93, because this is the long haul, Jason. We're talking like 3-4 years down the road with this team.
Oh yeah, I mean, you mentioned the daycare. Those guys, Stott and Brandon Marsh, who's on the IL right now. But what a spark he's been. But what's really cool about this team is, okay, you lose Trey Turner, and we're all bummed out about that. They didn't miss a beat. They just swept the Milwaukee Brewers when the offense barely did anything, but the pitching was so strong that they kept them in the game, so the offense could do just enough. So it's like, that's the mark of a good team. When one facet is struggling, the other facet picks them up. And man, I'm looking for. I wish we could fast forward to October. I don't know about you.
I'll tell you what, though, whether it be April, May, now we're in June, it's felt like Red October down that stadium already. Yeah. I mean, it's been unbelievable. And I think one of the biggest things that differs from last year and the year before, this is more of a complete team. You mentioned it, right? The other night, Nick Castellanos hits a 2-run homer. That's all they need. They win the game. There's timely hits. You see Kyle Schwarber batting over 230 now, not 190. Yeah. You see guys that are just trying to put the ball in play, and I think that's what we missed because it was home run or nothing. And now we're manufacturing runs. We're more of a complete team. So I think that's why we're going to continue to go down this road.
And I'll tell you what, before the season, and I talked to Larry Boa about this on this podcast, talking about Rojas in center field. And Boa said, if you can get, any production from him at the plate, it's gravy because his defense is so good. But he must have really worked at it because he's becoming a pretty good hitter at the plate.
The Phillies have the best hitting instruction in all of baseball. It's simple. I mean, if you just look at it, you mentioned about Trey Turner going down, and then Mondo Sosa comes over.
Yeah, how about him?
Right. He continue to work and work. He's batting over 300. Brandon Marsh, a career 230 hitter, was almost batting 300. Right. So, Kevin Long and all his crew there, they're fascinated with getting these guys bats on the balls. And that's why I said, I agree with Larry. I have my own stance that everybody was making too much of a deal out of Rojas. Listen, man, if your 9-hole hitter is the reason why you can't go to the playoffs,
yeah, I agree.
You have much bigger problems than that.
I totally agree. All right, but so let's go from the hitting to the pitching. Talk about the job that Caleb Cotham has done. I mean, whether it's the starting staff or the bullpen, I mean, they're lights out top to bottom.
They really are, man. Listen, there's a couple guys like Gregory Soto scares me a little bit, man.
Yeah, he scares me a lot.
Scares me a little bit, right? they seem like they have the stuff, but they're just not always there. But this fascinates me because I look at that '08 team, and I was saying this a couple days ago with with Renee Washington on the Phillies podcast over there at PHY Philly Sports, and you look at the rotation and the bullpen that the Braves had in the '90s, and you can kind of compare the pitchers that we have to them, right? You had Steve Avery that people forgot about that came out as a rookie. Now you have Christopher Sanchez, right? You have Zach Wheeler, who's every bit of painting the corners like Greg Maddux. You have Tom Glavine, right? You have Aaron Nola. You have Ranger Suarez. I mean, like it is. And then how about Hoffman? Like, how about Jeff Hoffman? He's the Chad Durbin you had in 2008. Nobody knew who Chad Durbin was, but all of a sudden he did everything. He was unstoppable. So it is really nice to see. This is a complete team. Dombro did a great job.
He really did.
The pitching, oh my God. And I'm just fascinated because here's the thing. We're going neck and neck with the New York Yankees. And I keep saying this, that Garrett Cole just did his rehab start. They haven't even got him yet. And this is kind of sizing up to be 2009 all over again.
Yeah, that 3-game series at the end of July at Citizens Bank Park with the Yankees should be interesting. What is it, like the 27th, 28th, and 29th? Something like that.
Nice. That's going to be nice.
I'll tell you, talking about pitchers, I am becoming a huge Matt Strahm fan. That guy has great stuff. Now, I know, Thompson is kind of still doing the closer by committee type thing. I mean, I know, it's a lot of it's Alvarado, but man, I think Strahm has closer stuff too.
The great thing about Strahm is, and you heard this word from Rob Thompson last year and the year before, he uses the word battle tested a lot. And Strahm's a guy who pitched in Boston, right, in the AL East, one of the best divisions, if not the best in baseball. And he knows what it takes to get these guys out. He's got kind of a quirky delivery, a little bit kind of deceiving, doesn't have blow away stuff, but he has that placement.
Yep.
And a lot of that is that relationship he has, him and JT Realmuto, best catcher of baseball, right? We know that. But Matt Strahm is that crafty veteran that you always need. Remember, again, in '08, we had Scott Air. We brought Scott Air in from the Chicago Cubs, who was battle tested.
That's right.
Who was that crafty guy, right? So, listen, I can't speak enough about Matt Strahm. I was a huge advocate when they brought him over. I said, man, this is a great deal. But I was like, I'm like, no, you don't understand. This dude can pitch, and you're seeing it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, okay, now listen, we talked a lot of positives. I do have to hit on one negative. All right.
Sure.
What do we do about Taijuan Walker? Now, he's pitching one of the games in London, right?
He is. And
yeah.
Listen, I will tell you.
Do we have to pitch him in London? Seriously? I mean, that's like a showcase game.
I look at Taijuan Walker and I say the best thing about him is he could still strike guys out. Right. I think this is a matter of you have to be very careful because you made the move to put Turnbull into the long relief bullpen role, who was pitching lights out. And he already admitted he had some issues, not that they had him do it, but to get adjusted to it. And now if you saw him coming the other day, he is adjusting. He's gotten to that role. So I think you just have to roll with Walker and say, listen, I know when he's out there, he's going to have a short lease, but at least I know he can get guys out. We're just going to have to score some runs, and you have the offense to do that. So I think unless he gets, I'm talking like ridiculously horrible, I think he'll continue to roll. I mean, listen, we had this in '08 too. You had guys going at like Kentucky Joe and Joe Blanton. He was just an innings eater. He gave up runs, but he struck guys out. Taijuan Walker's kind of like the same thing. Yeah,
but Blanton had the home run in the World Series.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. Never forget that, man.
Can I tell you something? That's the one thing that I don't like about the DH. Okay, I've done a total 180 on the DH. I never liked the DH. But now it's like my attitude is I don't want to have it automatic out every ninth spot. And listen, without the DH, we wouldn't have had Harper in the lineup last season. But that being said, the DH takes away moments like the Joe Blanton home run. So I'm kind of split on it. What are your thoughts on that?
I love the DH.
Okay.
Honestly, I love it. And real fast, just I want to say one more thing about Taijuan Walker before I forget.
Sure, no problem. So
everybody remember too, Taijuan Walker last year wasn't on the postseason roster. You go to a 3-man rotation in the playoff.
True. That's a good point.
Right. So all you're looking at, Walker, is to be an innings eater. Again, remember, to kind of get through those innings and to save the bullpen and to stretch that bullpen out in the postseason. So Walker just needs to get regular season. It's at one time every 5. Just deal with it. Let it go. Thompson has a plan. But the DH, I've always said it. It needs to be universal. Think about this, Jason. Think about the guys back in the day that could have prolonged their careers.
Yeah.
If universal DH, right? I mean, thankfully, Bryce Harper, we don't even have Bryce Harper last year.
Right.
There's no universal DH. But I just like it. I think it can prolong a lot of veterans in their later times of their career to give them a shot to continue playing.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because can you imagine Jim Thome and Ryan Howard in the same lineup? If there was a DH, Jim Thome could have stayed on the team.
That's a great point. Think about that. Yeah, I mean, because when it was the whole, when do we bring Ryan up? And reason why he didn't come up till 25 years old, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you talk. Wow, that's a perennial powerhouse right there. That would be amazing.
That would have been
so great about it.
That
right?
would have been. Yeah, I agree with you. Like I said, I've done pretty much a total 180 on the DH. Let the pitchers focus on pitching, and let's get an actual hitter in that 9 spot. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Looking ahead to the All-Star game, the ballots just came out a few days ago as we're recording this. How many Phillies are on that team? I mean, who do you think's on the team?
It is crazy, man, because we do have 3 of the top 10 pitchers in baseball. I mean, listen, it's crazy. Ranger Suarez, for all intents and purposes, could be starting this All-Star game. Right?
He could. That's right.
Matt Baum should be an all-star coming out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
Right? And how do you bypass Wheeler? Maybe because of his record, because he didn't always have the run support. I mean, Aaron Nola, and then you just go Bryce Harper, player of the month, right? I mean, Alec Boehm leading the league in RBIs. I mean, the list goes on.
Hey,
and
listen,
JT.
Yeah, JT.
I mean,
Alec Boehm could be your starting third baseman in the All-Star game, I think.
Yes, he could, man. Yes, he could. I love that kid. He was my preseason pick to have a breakout year. I just saw it about him, his work ethic and what he does. And, and the biggest thing is, even you saw him with the 3-error game. He didn't let it get to him. And that's the culture that Rob Thompson has built, right? Forget about it. We'll go back at it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's why they continue to win series, and that's why they continue to be unfathomable.
Yeah, well, listen, they built up a nice cushion for themselves too. So when you have a bit of a stumbling block, it's not as stressful because you've got that cushion that you built up. But Boehm, and listen, we've all talked about this till we're blue in the face, but I'll say it again. How impressive last year when he was caught making that comment, "I hate this effing place." Listen, the natural tendency is to deny it. No, that's not what I said. No, look, I said it. I didn't mean it. I was emotional. And how much did that kind of turn the fans in his favor? That was unbelievable. He handled that perfectly.
He really did. And here's the thing, like as a publicist myself and a PR guy, I don't think that was staged. I think Alec just did that upon himself.
Oh, I agree with you. Yep.
Right. And I think that's why that was so authentic and it was so real. And I think that's why the fans fell in love with that point. That wasn't, a scripted statement. That wasn't a coaching. No, he was just telling the way it is. And you see him right now. And that's why the fans love him. And that is Philadelphia, man. That is Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about that. And listen, and talking about the Philadelphia fans, perfect segue into this. So, we talked about the Brewers series. Rhys Hoskins coming back to CBP for the first time. That ovation he got for his first at bat, not to be cliche, but goosebumps, man. I mean, unbelievable.
Yep. No, 100%, man. Like if I was, when I'm a big wrestling fan, and when The Rock came back, the first thing he would do was point to his arm and say, "Look at the goosebumps," and that's what I got during that. And shout out to, I'm not just going to say JT Realmuto, but even the umpire, even the other team, everybody gave him his moment. See, people don't look at little things like that.
Yeah.
But they just didn't stand there. They moved out of the batter's box and gave him that opportunity to just be, to be cheered for and elated for from the fans. And I think that was great. That was very special. He'll be back, Jason. He will finish his career as a Philadelphia Philly. Mark my words.
No, you're not talking about like a ceremonial one-day contract. You're talking about actually on the team. Really? You think so?
Yeah, I do. He signed a 3-year contract with Milwaukee. This is the first year. You just look at the way this team's lined up. You talked about the universal DH. You have Bryce Harper being able to play third base. Nick Castellanos signed a 5-year deal. He's in year 3. 2 years, 2 years. Just do the math, man. Bryce Harper could go back out to right field, and Rhys Hoskins could come back and play first or be your universal DH.
But hold on. But let me ask you this. Okay, if Bryce Harper could go back and play right field, couldn't they have put him in right field and kept Hoskins at first base?
No, because you have Kyle Schwarber, right? So you have to look at, you have big money in Schwarber in left field, who needs to be your DH, right? You have big money with Castellanos playing right field, and then you have big money with Harper. So there was too many immovable parts, and I think they knew that.
Yeah,
and I think it's those kind of handshake deals like Cliff Lee. Look, we're going to trade you, but you're coming back, and I do think he will be back.
So okay, so wait, you're saying a lot of cool things here. You think that Cliff Lee, when he was traded, you think he knew he was eventually coming back?
No, I don't think he knew. I think they knew.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm saying I think they knew. Oh yeah, he was blindsided, obviously, but I do think throughout the grapevine, I'm pretty sure the way Ruben Amaro did operate, I'm pretty sure he's a pretty personable guy. He kind of made it known we're going to try to get you back. Don't worry.
Got it.
I mean. Jason, that would have been brilliant. I know everybody hates that move. That would have been, if that worked out. Remember, Felipe Omont, Tyson Gillies, okay, and Jose Ramirez, or Justin Ramirez. I know it was Ramirez, JC Ramirez. If that would have worked, if just 2 of those pieces would have worked, man, we would have been talking about Ruben getting his own statue somewhere.
Well, and I remember Felipe Omont always seemed like he had the stuff.
I know.
But it just never equated. It just never worked. I don't know if it was like between the ears, but he always seemed like he had the talent. Like it was right there, just waiting to kind of come up to the surface, but it just never happened.
Yeah, it's a shame because he had that Randy Johnson type presence because he was so tall and so large. He had that intimidating factor, but just can never put it all together.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. We're talking about how this team is so stacked up. I'm hearing people on sports radio talk about how, the Phillies could threaten the Seattle Mariners record for 116 wins in a season. I think that might be a little premature, but having said all of this, if they don't at least get to the World Series, is this season a failure?
Yes, 100%.
I agree with you.
It has to be, right? It's the way we've talked about the Sixers in the past, the way we talked about the Eagles. When you go all in and already experience that, and you're built for that role, we've already seen the limitations. We've seen what they've done. Listen, that's all they talked about: getting back. If they don't go back, unfortunately, we could talk about the moments all we want, but this season will be looked at as a failure. For absolutely. Does
it worry you that the lineup still has games like the last 3 games against Milwaukee? And no. Look, that was their downfall against Arizona last season. Does that worry you at all?
No, because the problem with the Arizona series was the timely hitting, right? You're not always going to hit, but the best thing you see, like for instance, look at yesterday's game, and you look at Castellanos when he hits that home run. First thing, I think it was Schwarber leads off for the walk, and then Pache comes up, and then they hit into a double play, but it's 2 outs, and what happens? Castellanos comes up and hits a 2-run home run.
Right.
Now, that's a timely hit. Not saying it's always got to be a home run, but I feel like this team is more driven to be able to get that run across. They've shown me that. This is a different team. We lose half the games last year with this team in this same scenario, and this year it's just been completely different.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Totally agree. All right, I want to move to football real quick because as we record this, the Eagles are doing their 3-day mandatory minicamp. I didn't realize it's the first minicamp they've had since 2019. Did you realize that?
Yeah, NFL got soft, man. NFL got soft, and and now all of a sudden, so did the Eagles. But I think the Eagles showed last year, man, we got to up this game. And when you bring in guys like Vic Fangio, he's a dog, man. He does not like guys to take days off. So I think this was absolutely had to be put in play.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But talking about getting soft, come August, once we've got some preseason games. It's been, the last few years, it's been, the regulars don't play in the preseason games, which I always thought was ridiculous. I understand, you want to put Jalen Hurts in bubble wrap. I get that. But on the other hand, you need real game action to get ready for the season. The way it's been, games 1, 2, and 3 have been how they're getting ready for the season, but it's during real games. Do you think the regulars play in the preseason?
No, not at all.
They're still kept out, really?
I do. I think, over the last, I'd say 2 to 3 years, you start to see those joint practices with the other teams. And within those joint practices, they do a lot of scrimmages and they do a lot of inter squad games.
But is that the same thing?
It isn't, right? It's better than it used to be.
Right.
But the problem is, you have such a prolonged season now, and especially with teams that have Super Bowl aspirations every single year, they're playing those extra 2 to 3 games every year. It's a lot of wear and tear on the body. And as these guys get older, you got to be very, very careful. So that's why, if you notice, I've always said this, when they added the extra game or two, that they'll sit there and you'll see guys miss games more often than not. Teams are going to be a little more pretentious to put guys out there in spots. And I think you're going to continue to see that. So the regular season, as a fantasy football player, man, you got to wait till like week 5. Right. And that's honestly what it is. You wait till like week 5 till they actually start gearing up. So, but yeah, I don't expect anything different from those players not playing.
It's funny. On my old TV show on Channel 17, I used to have a sports betting guy on named Jason Logan from Covers.com. And I don't know if it's the same talking about fantasy football, but he said that it's actually easier to bet preseason games. And I said to him, how is that possible? Because, it's a bunch of players you never heard of. How can you bet a preseason game? And he said it's the only time that the coaches will tell you exactly what they plan to do. Is it the same way in the fantasy sports world?
Well, you don't play fantasy in preseason. So, you can only bet in the preseason. So you're not playing preseason fantasy.
See, I need to be educated about fantasy football. Can you tell?
Yeah. So so in fantasy football, you're drafting in the preseason. So want to really draft, like most drafts are, right after Labor Day, because the teams can still make cuts. They can make moves. So you have to be very, cautious about who you're drafting, especially because of injuries that they do play in the preseason. So, yeah, It's a different animal, a completely different animal.
So, okay, let me ask you this, because, I've always been fascinated by fantasy football. And I've tuned into your show because I've texted you when you're on the air on SiriusXM. I appreciate it. Yeah, you and Dave. Absolutely. So, the thing that I wonder about fantasy football, let me give you a scenario, okay? You're an Eagles fan. We all know that. You're a diehard Eagles fan. Eagles are playing the Kansas City Chiefs, but you got Patrick Mahomes on your fantasy team. What do you do? Who do you root for?
You try to go the intermediate route.
Okay.
Right? So what I do is say, okay, so I know the Eagles are scoring an average of about 28 points a game. So that's good. So you know what, Pat? Give me 2 touchdowns. That's 14. I'm happy because I know we'll win 28-14, right? So but when you start to score 3, then I start going, all right, man, let's take it off now. I don't want to see that.
Okay, so what you're saying is the home team still ranks above the fantasy team then, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's only one game. It's only one game. If I'm an expert fantasy player, I can make that up later on in the year.
There you go. I like that. It's kind of like the equivalent of the people who said, you know what? I hope Rhys Hoskins hits 2 home runs, but the Phillies still win.
Yeah, exactly. Like you heard he hit the home run. They booed him. They gave him a little ceremonial boo, and then they turned it into cheers, which was great. I think he loved every minute of it.
Yeah, but I'll tell you something. Before the first game, my mom is a huge sports fan, especially baseball. So we're talking about Rhys Hoskins coming back to Philly, and she says, "I really hope he hits a home run." And I said, "I don't. Why would you want him to hit a home run that can hurt our team?" You know what? When he walks to the plate, you give him his just due. I mean, he deserves it. Give him the standing O. Give him a standing O every time he comes to the plate. I don't care. He deserves all that. But I mean, what's the cliche? It's all about the laundry. He's wearing the wrong jersey. I don't want him hitting a home run. How did you feel about that? Were you happy for him?
Yeah, I was. I because I know it's a business, but Rhys Hoskins was through everything in this town. Right, he was through the good and the bad. He was the one guy.
True.
Right, and listen, I'll be honest with you. I'm a sports fan. I buried him a couple times. I said, "How can you make Rhys Hoskins the face of your franchise?" But he turned into that, right? Because he constantly worked at it. His wife was fantastic with the Phase. He did a lot of community outreach within the town. Did a lot of rescue events with the animals, the SPCA. So I think even in his mind, even though he knew it was a business, good for him, because a little bit in his mind, I think he was like, "You should have kept me. You still should have kept me." So I do want to see him at least do well, even though we won, and I think it worked out.
No, look, I get it. And listen, after the fact, since the Phillies won the game, I didn't mind that he hit the home run. But at the time, I had an argument with my mom. No, I don't want him to hit a home run. No, not at all.
It's tough, man. It's tough to think that way. It really is.
And is it weird seeing him wear number 12?
Yeah, it's so strange. It's just strange seeing him wear a different uniform, man. Like,
well, that's true. Yeah,
it really is. It really, really is. Such a nice guy, such a personable guy. I mean, they got a great guy out there in Milwaukee, and there's no secret on why that team is doing well. And I know they're streaky, but they're still up and down. But having a leader like that in Rhys, with guys like Christian Yelich and Willie Adames and Contreras, they got a young team out there, and he's a great veteran for them to have.
Yeah, I'd love to see him get back to the postseason. Absolutely. All right. I'm noticing the picture directly behind you, your 76ers poster. I've got the exact same one across the way on the far wall in my basement, the exact same poster with the years that they won the championship. And I will tell you, I think it's pretty lame that they include 1955. That's just me.
We talked about that. It's weird.
That's just me, because they were the Syracuse Nationals. Yes, the franchise did win the title, but they were not the Philadelphia 76ers. They were the Syracuse Nationals. So, I mean, but listen, I guess when you only have two legit titles in your history, I guess you do what you got to do, right?
Yeah, listen, man. I mean, we've been starving for a title, so put on whatever they can, Jason. I don't care. Put any day you want to put 2001 on there, even though we didn't win. Put the stepper over, whatever we can add our claim to. I'm good.
I remember, and I'm sure you do too, 2001 vividly, when they upset the Lakers in Game 1. I thought, hey, wow, I mean, they got a shot. And then it all went downhill from there. But let's face it, you only have a certain window of opportunity with Joel Embiid, and it seems like every year it's the same thing. Can he stay healthy? Can his cardio last, through the grind of a playoff run? Will this ever happen? Will it ever happen? We say this as we record this on the day of Game 1 of the NBA Finals, once again without the 76ers.
I hate to say it, man, but I'm going to stick to my guns, because that's who I am. 2 years ago, I said the Philadelphia 76ers would never win a championship with Joel Embiid as the front piece of their offense, and I'm going to continue to say that. And that's no disrespect to Joel. I think he's a phenomenal player. He's a generational talent. The problem is, it's all the other misses that we've had on this team with the assets and the trades and the signings.
Oh yeah.
Right. And right now, there's no end in sight. You mentioned the health factor. It used to be cardio. Now the problem isn't cardio. Now you're worrying about the knees. When you have a 7-foot center like that going up and down the court, jumping constantly, you see it. He's already had injuries. So now you're already playing catch up on that. Listen, he's got 2 years, in my opinion, 2 years of prime Joel Embiid. And I just don't know if they have enough to be able to surround this team and get it to the next level.
Yeah, you know what? I hate to say it, but I agree with you. I don't think it's going to happen either. I mean, I was 10 years old when they won in '83, and I guess you were 5 years old, so we both don't remember too much about that title. Obviously we remember a little bit about Doc and a little bit about Moses and Billy Cunningham and Cheeks and all those guys. But who knows when it's going to happen again? The rumors about Jimmy Butler, you think they're legit, and would you like to see that happen?
Listen, I think all the rumors are legit. Whenever you have the centerpiece of Joel Embiid and a team that has the second most cap room in the NBA and a ton of assets, the rumors are going to be true. And I will tell everybody out there, I know everybody, whether it be Philly radio, national radio, are talking, how can you tie a contract to 30? Listen, you just heard us. 2, possibly 3. I don't care who you sign, how much money, you have to go all in. It doesn't, you have to try everything. If that means Jimmy Butler, if that means Paul George, if that means LeBron, if that means KD, it doesn't matter. You have to try it, because what else do we have?
Well, that's
right. We don't have time for guys to develop, Jason.
No, you're right. You're right.
Guys to win now.
Right. And if you don't win in the Embiid window, do you pretty much have to go back to square one again? I mean, what do you do?
You really do. The one thing I will say, and I will give everybody a little bit of a good feeling, and I only know this from last year doing the, starting the Blue Coats Beat podcast for the Delaware Blue Coats, being down at the Chase Fieldhouse Center, watching these guys. And I will say this, I'm going to toot my own horn. I was the only guy in this town on Ricky Council before everybody else jumped on his wagon.
You were.
Right? I did see him.
Yes.
I saw him in the preseason.
Yes, you did.
He is a spectacular find. And the only reason why I bring him up is because the Blue Coats under Jameer Nelson have such a great scouting department and will to bring guys in that now, I mean, you see it, Terkavion Smith, Jeff Doughton. You see the guys that left, guys like Darius Baisley, guys like Kenny Lofton. These are guys are playing minutes in the NBA.
Yeah.
We've never had that, Jason.
Yeah.
We've never had that.
Listen, and I want to talk more about the Blue Coats in just a second, but one more Embiid question, okay? Then I got a lot about the Blue Coats I want to talk about. So, the story about him playing in the Olympics. My first impression was, no way. I don't want that. I don't want him playing basketball for anybody else but the Sixers because he's so injury prone. But I forget who I heard. I heard somebody on the radio say it, and it was a pretty good point. I mean, if he is in that winning environment, and if he wins a gold medal, and it actually teaches him how to win, maybe that would be good for him. What do you think?
It's not a bad point. I'll say a little something different. I'll say this isn't about the Philadelphia fans. This isn't about the Philadelphia 76ers. This is about Joel Embiid. And this is a moment, as a coach myself, I teach memories and moments, and this is a moment that he deserves. He's been here. He's grinded. He's been through the good. He's been through the bad.
Yeah.
Whether he gets hurt or not, doesn't matter. This is his moment. And how are we or anybody to say he shouldn't play? He deserves it. He gets to go out there. A kid from Cameroon who just started playing in double digits, didn't even know anything about basketball. Man, let him shine. He deserves every minute of it. So that's why I feel he should be able to go.
All right, I like that. I like that point of view. All right, Blue Coats. All right, and you and I have talked about this. I go back a long time with that franchise. But I want to know about your podcast. I want to know how we can check it out. Give me all the details.
Yeah, it's been great, man. Shout out to number one, Alex Yo, the VP of the Delaware Blue Coats, for giving me the opportunity, and my partner in crime, Master Coach, the Ambassador of Operations, Coach Joe Richmond. Wonderful, wonderful guy, does amazing things out there for the Blue Coats. He is my co-host. Together, we formed the Blue Coats Beat. What we do is we interview, whether it be players, we interview coaches. We have community outreach in the city of Delaware, or state of Delaware, in the city of Wilmington, out the Chase Fieldhouse Center. And you can listen to them wherever your podcasts are. Obviously, you could also listen on YouTube, on the Delaware Blue Coats YouTube page, on the Heat Ratio Sports YouTube page. It's powered by Heat Ratio Sports. Jason, we've had guys. We've had Sharif Abdul-Rahim, the president of the G League. We've had Sweet Lou Dunbar.
Whoa.
The Harlem Globetrotters.
Nice.
Sonny Hill.
Sonny Hill is so great to talk to.
He is, man. And it's great. We get into it. We had Coach Ayers on, the assistant coach from the Blue Coats, and we do a little barbershop talk. We talk a little basketball. We talk Blue Coats, and then we talk, positivity too about what's going on in the community. So it's a really good podcast.
And Joe Richmond, for those who are not familiar with Joe Richmond, just Google the guy. We had him in the studio at Channel 17 a couple times. He is such a great representative of that team because you mentioned how positive. He's so positive. He's so energetic. And, if you've never been to a Blue Coats game, he makes you want to go to a game. I mean, the guy is just amazing. There must be so much fun doing a podcast with him.
Oh, it's great, man. It's great. We get along fantastic. And, so everybody knows the only team in the NBA G League that has an ambassador of basketball operations is the Delaware Blue Coats. And that is Mr. Joe Richmond, who's been doing it since day one. And shout out to Joe, too, has an awesome, his first, I congratulate him, give him those flowers, his first pro camp that he's running August 3rd in the city of Chester. He's got players coming from France, coming overseas to play into, that's going to be scouted right there. My man, Joe, doing it large, man.
Wow.
I love it, man. He's a great guy.
That's awesome. No, he's tremendous. He's such an awesome guy. So, going back to the beginning of that franchise when they were originally called the Delaware 87ers, okay? And it was 87 because is it because Delaware was the first state to ratify the Constitution in 1787? Is that what it was? I think that's why they were called the 87ers.
You're bringing me back right there. I don't know.
Something like that. But it was, and the 87ers logo looked just like the 76ers logo, except with 87 in place of 76. But anyway, so I was the backup public address announcer for a couple of years. The team played at the Bob Carpenter Center at the University of Delaware. Now they've got the beautiful Chase Field House, which honestly I have yet to check out, and I must because
you got to get there, man.
Yeah, I hear it's
we'll go together.
I would love to.
Go together.
I would love to. I would love to. I would love to, because I'll tell you what. So year one, even year two, very sparse crowds, but then year 3 and 4. I mean, they really started to fill the Bob Carpenter Center up, and you could tell they were starting to outgrow the place. So I had a couple of really cool moments as a public address announcer for the 87ers. So Giannis Antetokounmpo, his brother, Thanasis Antetokounmpo, played for the Delaware 87ers. And as a PA announcer, it's all about syllables, and that was a great name to say. But do you remember the NBA player Baron Davis?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So Baron Davis had been out of the league for a little while. He was trying to make a comeback, and he signed with the Delaware 87ers. And I got to announce his very first game with the Delaware 87ers. And it was a thrill, man. It was when he got his first basket, and I got to announce his name. Man, it was it was one of those moments that look, that guy played in the NBA, and I'm announcing him right now. It was pretty cool.
I loved Baron Davis, man. Whether you're talking about the Golden State Warriors, Baron Davis, the Charlotte Hornets, the LA Clippers, man, that dude could shoot the three, man. He was lights out when he was in his heyday.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. A couple more things I want to get to. I've already kept you long enough, but so as we record this, the Flyers had a media availability yesterday with Keith Jones and Dan Hilferty, like the CEO of Comcast, I guess. What the Flyers have done, and it's a shame because last season at one point it looked like, maybe this team could do something this year. It didn't happen. They kind of collapsed at the end, but you still got to feel they're moving in the right direction, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a couple years, but they finally have a system in place to what they're striving to do. And Danny Briere has really decided to, listen, we're going to go and we're going to draft right. We're not going to overreach on certain players. We're going to develop players. And listen, Tortorella, whether you like him or not,
I like him.
He's a nonsense guy, right? I do. I love it. I love the approach, and I think that's what they needed. And listen, he was the first guy too. I remember when they were on that winning streak, and he was like, "Look, we didn't win nothing yet.
Yeah,
it's a long season." He knew. I think he knew at that time. Like eventually, they caught the lightning. It was going to run out, but I think they're a couple years away. But I really like what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And and looking back to last season, I mean, let's face it. And obviously, I don't want to get into the awful story of Carter Hart and what he's alleged to have done. But just from a hockey standpoint, out of nowhere, their starting goaltender was gone, and they had to deal with that. And I think they dealt with it pretty well. And I agree with you; they are certainly moving in the right direction. And I don't know about you, but man, I miss playoff hockey in this town. I love playoff hockey.
Playoff hockey's great. I mean, just watching the Oilers, in the playoffs just made me think, man, I miss it. I miss those Red Wing series. I miss those Blackhawk series. I just, it's a different kind of hockey. It's a different style. I mean, I grew up. I remember watching them in the '80s against the Oilers, and
Oh yeah,
the Rick Tocchet and Berube and Tim Curry years with Hexy, between the pipes, and Kelly Eklund. And
man.
I remember, man, like
those names are taking me back.
right,
Wow.
right. I remember Brad Marsh.
Okay,
I mean,
here's a name for you. Ready? Ilka Sinisalo.
well, I remember that.
Yeah, man.
Yes. See, we're nostalgia sports guys. They Jason, I keep saying this. Anybody can talk hot takes. Anybody, they need more guys like us to actually bring us back to the big daddy kind of talk, man. Because I think people in this town really want that. They really do.
Well, first of all, Big Daddy was an awesome guy, and I think we all miss him. And it's funny. I agree with you. I think, especially in a town like Philly, I think people like to reminisce, I mean, yeah, you don't want to live in the past, but it's certainly good to visit every once in a while because, you made a comment about youth sports and how you want it to be about memories. Well, to a point, when it comes to being a fan of pro sports, it's the same thing. Our pro sports is connected to memories, right? Yes. I mean, and I've mentioned this a million times on this podcast, but I mean, I will always remember when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. The hug that I had with my father, I will never ever forget that. I mean, so yeah, you know what? I think that's part of why people like to reminisce because there's always great memories connected to certain moments.
There really is, and we've had so many memorable ones. We have, and that's just not just in the city of Philadelphia. I mean, some of my best shows, whether it be on Sirius or just on a stream, have been when we've talked about. When we've done, drafts of the best baseball players or talk about, the best moments or the top players at specific positions that don't get enough credit. Now, we just talked about Ryan Howard and Cole Hamels, in my opinion, not getting enough flowers in this town. Everybody forgets how powerful those guys were, but because we're always in the now.
Yep.
We're all, our kids don't look back. They just look ahead. They look now and ahead. And people have to give them an education. I think, listen, man, we need to sell that, Jason. They need to bring us on. That's what they need. We need to make this happen.
Well, I think you and I need to start because you're not doing enough podcasts, Tony. Okay, I think you and I need to start a Philly sports history podcast.
That could catch on. I like the sound of that.
I mean, it's not. Listen, I'm serious about this because there's so many great topics. I heard somebody on the radio talking about, weird names in Philadelphia sports. I mean, the first name that popped into my head, remember John Walkenfuss?
No.
Okay.
Refresh my memory.
All right, John Walkenfuss. And forgive me because this is a bad memory for Phillies fans. The Phillies, after the '83 World Series, they traded Willie Hernandez to the Detroit Tigers. Okay, remember him?
Yes.
So he was the setup man for Al Holland, who was the closer in '83. All right.
Yep.
They trade him to Detroit. He becomes their closer, and all he does is win the AL MVP and the Cy Young Award in '84, leading the Tigers to the World Series. But back from Detroit, the Phillies got Glenn Wilson, who was a nice right fielder and a decent hitter, and John Walkenfuss, who was a backup catcher. But
Glenn Wilson, no batting gloves.
I did not remember that. Seriously,
I don't think he used. I think him guys that didn't wear bat like him, Dickie Thon. Didn't wear no batting gloves. I always remember guys that Lance Parrish, all the guys that would wear no batting gloves. I remember for some reason.
I didn't remember that Dickie Thon didn't wear batting gloves. But see, all these names from the past. I mean, this is. Well, I think you and I could probably talk about this all day long. But
absolutely, 100%. And so could the audience. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I think so too. All right. So before I wrap this up, I want to talk about all the different things you've got your hands in. We've already talked about the Win Daily Sports Show. Give me the rundown now. That comes back for football season, right? That's not on right now, is it?
No, it's been on since. So took a little break when football ended. We premiered again Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, wonder.
Actually,
Okay,
no, May 1st.
got
May
it.
1st, first weekend of May. Every Sunday night, you can hear me and my co-host Dave 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. And then on Friday nights, you have Jason and Sia, or Jason and Joel from the Win Daily family as well. So we cover the weekends. And then we're going to be moving to Saturday and Sunday nights at 9 to 11 in the middle of July to get everybody ready for football.
Okay. Now let me ask you this, because a lot of us who are in this business, I think I've done a lot of cool things in my career, but I've never done anything on a national level. You have. What is that? What is that like? Knowing that you're talking to the entire country, are there butterflies? Is it an adrenaline rush? A little of both? What is it?
It's no butterflies. I can tell you that. I honestly, I'm very confident, and that's only because I did a lot of work to get myself to that level. But definitely, it's intense. I'm a very polarizing figure. Very passionate, so I sweat a lot when I'm on the air. Like I am.
Do you really?
I'll go up. My son's like, "Dad, are you out?" I'm like, "I was in a great conversation. Like I feel it, right?" And know what's great about it? Like I had a guy call in. He was on the road from North Carolina on Sunday. His name was Dan, great caller. And it was the first time he ever called into a radio station, and anybody ever gave him the chance to call in. And we let him go for a while, and he loved it. He could not send me enough messages. He posted the clip on his own YouTube channel. And it was just, that's what I love about it. Because you're reaching other audience, not just in Philly, and you can hear different objectives from different towns. So I love doing it. It's my favorite time of the year.
I love it. And listen, I'm not just saying this because we're friends, but it's obvious you do your homework, man. You are prepared on the air, and listen, that's the mark of a good broadcaster. Isn't just getting behind a microphone and talking. It's doing all the work beforehand and doing all the work behind the scenes. And you obviously do that, and Dave does it as well. And you guys are really good together, and it's a good listen. And listen, as we found out about 25 minutes or so ago, I'm not a big fantasy football guy, but I still listen to your show, and I'm entertained by it because of the two of you. So kudos to you, man.
Well, I will say this. I'm glad you said that, and I appreciate it because I've had so many. We've created a different dynamic, right? So that is the fantasy channel, and that is the sports betting channel. But we've kind of made it more as we wanted to make it more like a fan interaction show, and still add the element of fan, because you could talk about fantasy, but you can actually be entertaining and talk about the real topics as well. So we're one of the only shows that does it, I promise you. And that's why we've had a lot of people that tune into that.
I love it. All right. Heat Ratio Sports, another facet of what you do. Give me the lowdown on that, because I love when I'm scrolling through social media and there's Tony talking about the game. So what is there a set time that you do that, or is it just whenever you feel like it?
No, I mean, right. We used to have set times, used to have set shows, but now that, the way that digital media has kind of really, spiraled out of control, so to speak, with short form content, what I've learned to do is use Heat Razor Sports more as a platform to get those quick hitting heat out there as much as possible. So, Phillies are done. I'll get in front of my phone, or I'll get in front of just a raw video. I'll get it, I'll edit it and put it up. Every now and then, I will do some long form content when something really special happens.
Yeah.
And it does house, other shows like the Blue Coats Beat and the Fighting for Overtime podcast. And there's a lot of different things, wrestling, local. It's my home to talk local. That's what it is, Jason. My home to talk local sports.
I love that, and you're certainly passionate about that. And I want to ask you about the Fighting for Overtime podcast, because I know that is a topic that you're very passionate about. So tell us all about that, and because tell us about the podcast first, then we'll chat about it, because I've got some thoughts.
Yeah, listen, I've been a coach for 20 plus years, and I love every minute of it. I tell everybody, if you have an opportunity, you need to take it. It is such a great experience. But unfortunately, as I've taken the time, there's been a lot of unfortunate circumstances as well. I've dealt with myself through mental health battles, my kids through mental health battles, kids that I coach, because of the rigorous drive, because of, the bad sportsmanship, the bad stories, right? So and a lot of people have reached out to me as a coach and be like, man, this has happened. This has happened. And they needed a safe space. They needed a space to vent. They needed a space to tell their story. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to create a podcast. And I know they don't want to speak about it, but I'll speak about mine. So what I've done is, I'm creating episodes. These are personal experiences I've dealt with, good and bad, but unfortunately, a lot of bad, to show that these people aren't alone. You've probably gone through these same scenarios and thought, oh my, I can't believe this happened to me. Don't worry. It's happened to other people. And I've got messages. The outpouring of support has been great. And I've had coaches. I just had the coach from Ronert University on. I'm editing it right now, who coached in Division I, now in Division II, to give me his insight to what he does to help his players stay grounded and their mental health struggles as well. Because I think there's a huge part in this game, Jason, that not everybody's strong. I say it all the time. My son battled, and luckily he had a support cast like myself and my wife and everybody around him. But there's some kids that don't have that. So I wanted to create an opportunity for people to be able to vent and understand they're not alone.
Why do you think youth sports has changed so much? I mean, I remember back in the day. I played Little League Baseball for 2 years. All right. And honestly, when you saw me play, it was 2 years too long because I had no athletic talent whatsoever. All right. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter that I sucked at baseball. I was still in the lineup. The coach still, coached me up. Parents weren't screaming to get me out of the game. What changed and why did it change, do you think?
Oh man, obviously the first thing everybody's gonna talk about is money, right? And what I mean by money is scholarships. And the notion, unfortunately, and I ran through some stats that literally 1% of kids get a Division I scholarship that play youth sports. 1%.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to be that 1%. And they're so worried about their kid being on top of somebody else or their kid being out front and center that they lose focus on what's more important. And that is the kid even enjoying himself or herself? Does he or she even like the game? Are you living through your child? And I think that's
a great point. Yeah.
Right. And social media has elevated it to the point where people are seeing other kids. They're saying, wait a minute, why is that kid? Why not my kid? You need to practice more. You need to get out there more. And then, unfortunately, a lot of the volunteers, went to paid coaches. And now the coaches that are teaching your child have to win at all costs or they don't have a job.
Right.
So you got away from the volunteer coaches to the paid coaches. And I'll tell you what, man, it's really hurting our kids. I've met so many kids that are burnt out. The numbers of kids who stop playing as a junior in high school are staggering because of burnout. I
can believe it. And it's what else I'm seeing among youth pitchers. I'm seeing pitchers having Tommy John surgery while they're still in high school. I mean, how crazy is that, man?
It's because they never put a ball down.
Yeah.
And, and you think about it, you said, like, when we grew up, I played 3 sports. I played soccer, baseball, and basketball. I played a little old Wissanoming. Okay. And what they did was they gave me a freaking hat with a W on it, a pair of stirrups and a shirt. And they say, here you go. And I played for 6 to 8 weeks. And then I went to the next sport. Now these kids are playing all fall ball, winter ball, training. They're going to sessions 2-3 times a week. They're playing tournaments all season long. Their arms never get a break. And that's one of the biggest reasons on why the Tommy John surgery isn't in play.
Yeah. It's such a shame. And that's why I love, and I was listening to something that you said, but something along the lines of, and actually you mentioned some of it here just a few minutes ago, is the kid even having fun? And you had talked about how the memories are much more important than the result. It's not just about wins and losses. It's about providing memories. And you're absolutely right. I mean, look, I sucked as a baseball player, but there are still some great memories that I had from those 2 years. Now I ended up quitting just because I was really bad, and it got to be embarrassing that I would strike out all the time. But the first year I played Little League Baseball, I want to say 8 or 9 years old, And I grew up in Southampton, Bucks County, the Southampton Sports Club. My team was Phoenix. I forget what the Phoenix but orange shirt, orange cap. I have a picture somewhere. But my dad was the scorekeeper on the team. Okay, we had a head coach, we had an assistant coach, and there was another coach who did one of the coaches pitched. That's how young we were. The coaches pitched, and my dad was the scorekeeper. And each game he'd have a scorebook, and he'd be keeping score. And we were in the championship game, and we won. And I remember vividly to this day. And I was like 8 years old, and I'm 51 right now. My dad took a ball, wrote the score on the ball, tossed it to the coach, and it's like a keepsake. But it's like, cool moments like that. Youth baseball should be fun, even as you get older. It should be fun, and that's why, dude, I applaud you, man, because I love that you're doing this, because it's a topic that needs to be talked about, and it's a topic that I think a lot of people can relate to.
A lot, and I'm just happy to help, man. I love telling and listen. It helped me too. And not only help, but I will be honest, man, I had a lot of unfortunate events happen to me throughout my coaching years. And as I tell those stories, it's tough because I have to relive them again. And it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but if I can help somebody in the meantime, then it's more than worth it.
Well, Tony, all I could say is, man, the time, as always when we talk, the time goes by quick. What can I say? I said it at the top that you've got your hands in so many things. I thought I was a workaholic, but man, you got me beat. And I admire you, my friend. I do. I admire you. I respect the hell out of you. And just keep doing your thing, man, because you're doing great things, and I'm sure you'll continue that.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate the platform, and ditto to you as well. I come out and support you as much as I can.
And I appreciate that, man.
Go see you at the Blue Bar. I have all plans on getting there this week. So on Tuesday, I can't wait. I had a good time at, when you were at PAL. So it'd be good to see you at the Blue Bar. And
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do. And what's great, last thing I'll say is, just if anybody followed a Fighting for Overtime podcast, wherever you get your podcast from, the great part about it, Jason, is like when we get off this interview, I'm going to conduct another interview, and for the podcast with a girl that I coached, and she's only 3 years removed from softball. She's a kick-ass real estate agent right now.
Wow.
And she's agreed to come on to talk about her struggles as having a dad as a coach, as being a pitcher in the Council Rock school district. So that's what I'm enjoying, and that's what's so great about it. So I can't wait. I'm excited.
I love that. I love that. And listen, when you show up at the Blue Bar Tuesday night, your first beer is on me. Okay, I insist, please.
I'm not going to complain. No problem. I'll keep it light. We'll go little Miller Light. You know what I mean? No problem.
Yeah, you know what my go-to is now, and I'll end with this. Somebody introduced me to the Black and Blue. You know what that is?
No.
So it's part Guinness and part Blue Moon, and they kind of layer it, and it is outstanding.
I don't know if I could do that, brother.
Oh, no, trust me, man. It's great. It's great.
Oh, no, I think I'll stick to either my Corona Premier or my Blue Moon or my Miller Lite.
Miller Lite. All right, to each his own. Hey, Tony, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Always good to talk to you.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Everybody have a great day.
All right, you too. And thank you for watching episode 16 of the Philly Sports Convo. We'll see you next time.